Barcelona is one of the most iconic football clubs on earth, a global brand, a legend of La Liga, and home to legends like Lionel Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta. But behind the trophies, the history, and the Camp Nou roar lies one of the most staggering financial stories in modern sport. A few years ago, Barca's debt ballooned towards 2.5 billion euros, a figure so huge it shocked even seasoned football economists. Fans began to ask, is Barcelona still the most indebted club in football history? And can they survive this crisis? Today, we're going to unpack how that debt built up, what the club has done to fight back, and whether Barca's financial nightmare has finally turned a corner. Stick with me. If you love deep, clear breakdowns of the biggest stories in football finance, hit like and subscribe. This one gets complex, but it matters. A history of financial excess. Barcelona didn't get into the situation overnight. For decades, they were among the richest, most successful football teams in the world. Forbes regularly ranked Barca as one of the most valuable sports franchises globally, and before the debt crisis, they were consistently generating massive revenues. But after years of chasing success on the pitch, signing elite stars, paying enormous wages, and competing financially with rivals, the club's books began to creak. Profligate spending under previous leadership, especially during the 2010s, combined with the COVID-19 pandemic, set the stage for trouble. When ticket sales dried up and commercial deals slowed, Barca's existing shortfalls became long-term problems. Add to that the ambitious Espai Barça project, a full overhaul of Camp Nou and its surrounding facilities, and suddenly you're talking about a stadium financing bill in the billions, not the tens of millions. How the debt actually built up. The numbers. At its peak, Barca's gross liabilities were reported close to 2.5 billion euros or more once you factor in all stadium financing, operational debt, and transfer debts. While precise figures depend on how you measure them, multiple sources suggest that a large chunk came from long-term stadium financing and competitive spending. In the 2020s, Barca borrowed heavily, including 1.45 billion euros tied to the Espai Barça renovations alone. That massive outlay pushed total gross debt toward levels many had never seen in European football. On top of that, the club still owed significant transfer fees to other teams from past signings, payments that often have deadlines and penalties attached. Examples include money owed to Leeds, Bayern Munich, and Sevilla for players like Rafinha, Lewandowski, and Koundé. Combine all of that, and the figure approaches 3 billion euros of total obligations, depending how you count it. A truly eye-watering number for a club that at times couldn't even register new players due to financial rules. Are they still the most indebted club ever? Here's the tricky part. Being the most indebted club in history depends on how you measure it. Barcelona's raw debt numbers have been among the highest ever recorded, but context matters. Some clubs take on heavy debt for short periods, others inflate their books with stadium financing that's essentially long-term investment rather than operational shortfall. For a time, Barca's growth figures were among the biggest in world football, especially because they included massive infrastructure costs. But recent debt restructuring and financial improvements mean the simple headline 2.5 billion euros debt doesn't tell the whole story anymore. Other clubs have also carried massive obligations, including project financing and stadium rebuilds that rival Barcelona's. And clubs in different markets, especially outside Europe, sometimes use hybrid accounting that makes direct comparisons difficult. So, while Barca's situation was historically extreme, it's not necessarily a standalone world record today the way some fans once claimed, especially after they started restructuring and reducing their burden. What Barcelona has done to fight back. Since the debt crisis peaked, Barca's leadership has taken a series of steps to stabilize and restructure its finances. Bond issuance and refinancing. In 2025, Barca sold 424 million euros in bonds to refinance part of the debt tied to the Camp Nou renovation. This pushed major repayment deadlines from 2028 to as late as 2050, giving the club breathing room to manage its obligations without crippling cash flow. Longer repayment plans. The refinancing means Barca now repays over decades rather than within the next few years, crucial for avoiding short-term liquidity stress. Revenue growth. Operational results have improved. Barca reported an operational profit for the first time in years thanks to commercial expansion, sponsorship deals, and merchandise sales, including a huge global e-commerce push. Budget control. The club has worked hard to bring its wage bill into compliance with UEFA's rules, with the wage-to-income ratio reportedly around 54%, well within limits. Diversifying income. Barca's commercial revenues, especially from global deals and a record Nike sponsorship, have helped reduce reliance on match-day receipts. All of this has significantly reduced the effective debt burden reported in some media. Where the numbers stand in 2025-2026. By late 2025, multiple financial reports indicated Barcelona's operational financial situation was showing signs of recovery. The club posted a modest profit and generated nearly €1 billion in revenue, driven by sponsorship, merchandising, and the gradual return to full stadium operations. Despite the buzz around the €2.5 billion headline, the actual net debt, when you strip out stadium financing and long-term investment restructuring, has been reported closer to €1.45 billion. That's still among the highest in football, but improved from past peaks and showing a downward trend. Barcelona is no longer spiraling uncontrollably, but they're not out of the woods yet either. The risk of unpayable debt. Economists and financial analysts have repeatedly warned that even this level of debt is daunting. Some have described parts of Barcelona's obligations as almost unpayable without sustained revenue growth and disciplined budgeting. This isn't just about raw numbers, it's about cash flow and flexibility. A club can theoretically carry billions in long-term debt if it has steady income. But when deadlines cluster, wage pressure remains high, and revenue streams fluctuate, even a big club can find itself stretched thin. Barca's cautious repositioning, lowering risk premiums, spreading repayments over decades, and focusing on controlled spending is designed precisely to avoid future technical insolvency or sporting penalties. They may not be the single most indebted club ever in practical terms. The debt headline varies depending on what you include. But there's no denying Barcelona has been one of the most financially stretched clubs in modern football. Barcelona's debt nightmare was a defining chapter in modern football economics, a saga of ambition, excess, and ultimately hard choices to survive. If this deep dive gave you a clearer picture, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with friends who want to understand how the biggest clubs manage and sometimes struggle with the huge money that comes with the beautiful game. And let me know in the comments, do you think Barca will ever fully pay down this debt? Or is this just the start of their financial reboot? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.